everyone. Hello. Welcome to
my show.
To what Naz believes, Rory. Honestly, Naz believes this is now her show, and that Tyler.
I'm the co-host, Naz, not you.
We have to share a mic because Naz
Even
needs
Regis
her own
switched
mic.
it up.
Because Naz needs her own damn mic. Oh, Jesus. Welcome to the Higher Estate. We're going to have a really excellent show. This is actually the final show. No, let me say that again. It's not the final show. This is the last show in our series on health, fitness, wellness. We just did 3 weeks of it, a 3-week plunge into talking about, I don't even remember, who did we start with?
Vince.
We started with Vince. Vince was outstanding. You know Vince? Legacy Coaching?
No, I don't think
Vince,
so.
Vince, what's your last name? Call us.
Luciani.
Luciani. Okay, Naz knows this. No, Vince is an amazing guy. He's the guy that, talks about, he's a motivational guy, talks about health and wellness and really finding yourself through all these troubles and whatever we all suffer all the time. Last week we had Naz, and by fucking popular demand, I'll put that in the jar.
Fucking right, double it.
No, can you stop? No, don't swear. Don't swear just because I swear.
Excuse me.
Say earmuffs first.
Right, earmuffs. Because by popular demand, we're bringing her back for round 2. So we're going to talk about what's new and now. Like, we only got to what happened to the past. We didn't talk about the present. We didn't talk about the future of where we're going with health and wellness and what's happening in Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So we've got Naz here. We also have Rory McDonell here. Like, this guy is, he's a legend. He's a legend around here for sure. Look at his ears.
Is he saying your last name right?
Yeah, that's bang on.
All right.
Thank you. See,
nailed it.
She just wanted to fucking throw me under the bus. Jeez.
I'm just making sure.
Like,
I'm respecting your guest.
She's literally just trying to throw. Did I say your name right? Like,
I'm just respecting your guest.
you're just trying to throw me under the bus.
I am not.
You are. Where's my drink? I can't drink the money.
Who got you that drink?
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
I almost drank the money. It would go along with. Anyway,
Your life.
I have an X for that.
Your banter's entertaining. I like it.
Rory, who, if you saw the post that we did last night, he was a fighter in the UFC.
Didn't fight in the UFC. I've coached in the UFC.
Coached at UFC. I see him there all the time. You're always coaching UFC stuff.
Yeah, that's it's the highest level of the sport. Is where we're trying to get all of our guys. So I've done all my professional work there as a coach. I fought professionally. I fought guys that are in the UFC, but never made it there myself.
You look like a scrawny ass in that photo, man.
Which one?
I'm just kidding. You did.
I was.
You look like
Yeah.
you look tough.
That was 50 pounds ago. I fought at 155.
What?
Yeah, so I dropped.
You cut to 155.
I cut a lot of weight, and I was actually after my last fight, I was looking at cutting down to 145. But thank God that didn't happen. I probably would have had to cut my leg off.
That's what you were gonna say, huh? 10 pounds.
I say 125.
My
10 pounds, Rory?
leg. Listen, if I had to, can you imagine if I had to cut down to 155? Do you know what I'd look
I
like?
can't imagine when you have to cut down
wouldn't
peanut
have
butter
legs.
at 2 a.m.
Shut up. You and your damn peanut butter at 2 a.m. This one makes fun of me because, I'm like, let's eat healthy. And I pass out on the couch till 2 a.m. like every day.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I'm starving. So I go right to the peanut butter. I'm like,
Health conscious
but hold
diet.
on. I have like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and I put some honey on top.
Yeah.
Yum.
It's peanut butter and honey is the best thing
Throw
ever.
some bananas in there too.
Right? Right. There we go. So we got Rory here talking. We're going to talk about, he was on, by the way. We actually, one of our highest viewed shows was when you were on.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, it's because you're so adorable.
Well, you know what? I definitely have a face for radio, so it's shocking you got attention with the video as well.
The ears just like,
I know,
you can only pin so many things
I've
to
been doing
it.
that a lot. I've actually drained like 4 or 5 guys on the ears or on the team's ears because doctors don't do that. Like they won't. So you drain the blood out the same way you would drain an abscess, and just like an abscess, you should pack it with something, and that's the problem that most guys won't do. You'll just pull the blood out, and then they go train more, and it blows up again. So what they used to do in the olden days when I was a wrestler is they'd actually sew a button in the ear on both sides to keep it pinched shut so it would heal. So what I do is I'll just pack it with like gauze, and then vet wrap is an awesome way to keep it tight because it doesn't stick to their hair. Not a problem that I have, but
So we actually, it's funny. We used to pack everything. One of the main reasons you don't see
I'm
things
not up to date on medical
packed
science
anymore. Well, but if for fighters it would make sense to do it. But most of these guys show up to emerge or to like an urgent care or walk-in, where the evidence shows that there's no difference between packing or not packing when it comes to infection.
Yeah.
So everybody's basically stopped packing shit. That's like a 5-center.
Yeah, it's.
I don't have one of those.
You can say that on network television.
Yeah, I know.
That's
That's
fine. That's,
I only have very limited change here today.
So we're playing with the rules, not swearing.
Yeah,
less?
right. Swearing rules. So they pack a lot. They pack a lot less often. But I do think for fighters, I mean, you should probably just do it. Your ears are swelling as we look at them.
Yeah, it's just retaining the shape of the ear, right, and helping it heal.
And that's just from getting blows to the head?
No, it's from friction.
Friction, yeah.
Friction.
Unlikely to get from like a direct punch, but it's when it like gets ground and folded over. That's why you see wrestlers and rugby players, particularly in the scrum, because of the way they grind in.
You're not a real rugby player.
Shut yourself.
Well, you know what's funny?
I wore a scrum cap. Thanks very much.
Oh, you look adorable too. But I was reading about a doctor in Russia that you can pay 1,500 rubles, which is like $30 or $40, and he'll break your ears for you. And people are like, why the hell would you want your ears broken? So in Russia, wrestling is all mobbed up. Like there's a culture that goes along with the crime over there. So there's some status that goes with it. And then he also said there's guys that have been like what you just said, Dyer, right? You played rugby, but not really because you don't have the ears.
Yeah.
So there's guys that have wrestled for 15 years that are good wrestlers that don't have the broken ears. Like everybody thinks I'm a wimp. Nobody believes it. So they'll pay this guy to manually break their hands. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's nuts.
I was just that good.
So your ears are like the prison teardrop.
It is. But unlike a prison teardrop, you basically have to earn this. I guess a prison teardrop, you do have to murder somebody, right?
So
you gotta earn it.
Yeah. All right. I take that.
How did you know about this teardrop? I thought it was one of those like
It's actually
things.
from the Blood Gang.
Yeah.
From Bloods. Crips don't do that stuff.
I like the bad ones.
Crips. Mr. Whitey over here knows all about it.
Lived in St. Louis for 8 years.
Okay. This guy, it's not the blah, blah. Listen, I just watched an awesome. Do you guys watch that show, is it called Big Mike? About that rapper. What's his name? Mike. What? Killer Mike. So he has a show on Netflix. It's actually kind of funny. It's great. Listen to this show. We're gonna get to the news, everybody. This is this is an aside. We haven't even started the podcast yet. Naz just tried stealing the show, so I got to take it back.
I did.
So Killer Mike, he's got like Mike something or other on Netflix, and what he does is he goes around like he tries to set society straight, of course. So the first episode is amazing. He thinks what kids are learning in school is useless. So he goes.
I have seen this.
Goes to the grade 1 class. And he's like, "What do you guys want to do when you grow up?" One's like an astronaut. One's a dentist. He's like, forget everything you ever learned. None of that shit is practical at all. You got to learn how to change a light bulb. You got to learn how to be an electrician. You got to learn how. So he's like, he goes to the principal of the school, and his principal is like, "Oh, we want to teach our kids to think highly and whatever, abstractly think and have all these dreams and whatever." And he's like, "Nah, none of that's gonna work." So she's like, "Well, maybe you got to go to adults." So he takes a bunch of adults off the street, puts them in a room, and he shows them all, like he has his buddy over there, and he shows them all how to, like a video, 10-minute video, how to drain a clogged, kitchen sink? What do you call it? Drain, like...
A snake.
Snake,
yeah.
Right. Fuck, I'm good at
You were the kid that said you wanted to be a doctor.
No, I didn't even want to be a doctor.
I don't know.
I didn't even want to be a doctor. I'm like, sit me outside, I'll play ball all day. All right, so he taught them how to snake a drain, taught them how to change a door handle, and showed them a picture of or a video of something else I can't remember. Oh, how to change a light bulb, or how to put the wires through to a light bulb to close the circuit. And then he gave them a 10-minute whatever. He gave them a 10-minute test at the end. They failed, like absolutely failed, knew nothing. So he's like, how do we get people on the internet to actually learn things? So he's like, well, what do most people on the internet do?
Porn.
Watch porn.
Yeah.
So he goes to these, like this cam girl, and he's like, we got to teach people how to do these things practically.
Yeah.
So
It's awesome.
So so he goes in and he's like, he sets up a whole like porn video on how to change a light bulb or whatever, how to change a door handle, how to change the door frame, all this shit. Gives them the test again. 98%.
Yeah.
They like
It was so
rock-
fun. It was,
it
but
was
watching them watch it, because he did like, there was a lesbian scene and there's a gay scene and then there's like a
He
straight
made it,
scene,
yeah.
and the straight guys are like watching like this.
I know.
It was
it was awesome.
it is good. It is good.
They rocked it out. But another one, because was about the Crips and Bloods. He looks at, he called it gangster racism, something like that. Because if you look at people like Hell's Angels, bikers clubs, all those things, they sell T-shirts. Man, it's a whole enterprise, right? They have shirts. They have like paraphernalia. They have all this shit. And they sell them in stores and they make it super legit. So he goes to one of his blood friends, because he's a blood, or he was friends with all these guys. He's like, where's our enterprise?
Yeah.
We don't have an enterprise. So we need to start doing what they do to legitimize what it is.
Yeah.
But so then he's like, well, what can we possibly do? They came up with an idea,
hoodies.
Crip Cola.
Yeah. Still selling Coke.
So they're selling Coke. They're selling cocaine. No, not cocaine. They're selling Coca-Cola. Sorry, my bad. They're selling Coca-Cola.
And then you don't
Stop.
find
That's not really
Ira
that was a
tomorrow.
departure from
No,
from
this
their-
was
their
genius,
background.
guys. This is some genius.
Where's Ira missing?
This is some genius shit. So this is genius. So Crip Cola is Coca-Cola. It's a cola for, that they can go sell. So initially nobody wanted to buy it. But why are people buying biker stuff? Like, they're like, well, we don't want to get killed by buying a Crip drink. So he created a merge, sort of, between the Crips and the Bloods. They had their blood cola or whatever it was. And then they sat together at like a festival or a market, and they were all selling their shit, right? Remember that episode?
Yeah,
it was a
good.
great episode. Anyway,
good one.
It's
a funny show.
It's a funny show. I think the whole point was
Yeah, where does it circle around to? Like, where did this...
Where did we start with?
Yeah, what did we start with?
You mentioned the blood.
Oh, you
Oh,
just
we
mentioned the
started
Bloods.
with that
Oh,
too,
yeah, there you go. We dialed it all back.
Nobody can hear him. Nobody can hear him either. Right. Oh, you watched this?
Well, no, I just know the stigma behind colors.
Yeah.
If you wore blue in
Yeah.
a neighborhood and you weren't a Crip, you're getting your ass stomped. Stomped.
It's actually
It's the
when I
same
was
thing.
in Scotland, you go to a pub and they say no soccer colors, because it's the same thing.
Same thing.
In Glasgow, yeah, in Glasgow, the Rangers and the Celtic it's Catholic and Protestants, and they will beat the shit out of each other just because you're wearing the wrong jersey.
I was in South Korea 3 weeks ago, and I got thrown out of the gym for having tattoos. They have a no tattoo policy.
Yeah.
They asked me to put on I wish I had a picture of it. They asked me to put on like this like skin diving like shirt.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you ever seen I'm like 3 times the size of any Korean
Yeah.
I've ever met. And so they give me this shirt, it's like up to my belly, it like comes half of my arm. And the best part was they still in their gyms. First of all, they're super active.
Yeah.
Their gym in the hotel was literally bigger than any gym I've seen here, like bigger than Good Life. And everybody is using it, but you have to wear their uniform, you have to wear the whole kit when you go in. But they still have those remember those Flintstones where you go on those machines and you get rubbed out?
Yeah.
Like it was like you get worked out or you're supposed to work out with it.
Yeah.
I used it as a massager at the end. It was great. And you see this belly hanging out. And it's like, and I'm doing this whole little rub down, turning around, everyone's looking at me and I'm like, screw it. Take my top off, have the tattoos. Yeah, you're not allowed in.
So
anyway.
why is it? Is it just because of the criminal underworld?
Like
I think they're trying to create. It's the same idea that you just don't want to. I think at one time maybe it was a really bad thing.
You know, in Japan, the Yakuza, their tattoo culture is really fundamentally linked to.
And that's
to the
why
crime.
they do, like, they'll have just this part, like, visible so they can still wear a shirt.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because Japan has one of the most talented artists when it comes to tattoo
big
artists,
time.
Yeah.
right?
The guy that did mine studied under a guy that does it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they're
some of the
sick.
full body pieces. I saw one that was back of the knees to shoulders that was just half of a woman's face, but the entire back of the
Just
knees
make
all
sure
the way up
that's
to the
still
base
going.
of the neck. It was beautiful.
Cool.
That's really cool.
All right, let's go back to the cannabis space.
I'm gonna go check my sushi.
Oh, is it here? We have. What's that? What did we skip the dishes? Is delivering us lunch during the show. All right, so back to the cannabis world. A couple things have actually happened this past week in the cannabis world. I'm just going to go off on one rant before I give it over to Tyler to talk about the news, and that was my latest post on Instagram. It seemed to get a lot of comments, and that was the fact that the cost of cannabis from a licensed producer, and I'm going to let Tyler talk about it a little bit as well, is super, super expensive. And it's a problem because it excludes so many people from being able to get access to cannabis. They also came in, the whole legalization was supposed to come out to decrease the underworld, right? To get rid of the black market, the gray markets, and all these other markets. But if you're selling your cannabis for anywhere over $10, which most of these LPs are right now, and speaking to Tyler yesterday, 5 grams at the end of the day after shipping all this shit, you're looking at $100 for 5 grams. Who the hell is going to go to a licensed producer? It just doesn't make sense. So I think there's something we need to do about that. And when we start talking to Rory and to Naz about cannabis in the today's world and what's happening with sport and fitness, I know we're doing this show. We're going to Elevated something or other, can't remember the name, is doing a cannabis and fitness expo. I'll be on a panel there maybe on the 24th of March. Yeah, and actually, that'd be great for you to be on that panel. I'm going to tell them.
Yeah, I would love to.
Excellent. There's going to be a lot of fitness folks involved. I usually don't do shows like that because unless they're massive, like big, it's just not worth. Like it's just too hard for me to get out.
Yeah,
it'll be good, but it's probably one of the first ones we've had specifically on sport.
I would love to be involved.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to them and tell them about that. I'm going to give this over to Tyler because we're one mic short that's broken and Naz needed her own.
All right,
Yes,
coming
I
up in
did.
the news now.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, there was a big announcement from Namaste Technologies that they've entered into a share purchase agreement for 49% of the Calgary-based Chocolate Inc. organization. If you've never heard of Chocolate before, they're the largest bean-to-bar chocolate manufacturer in Canada. They have products in 25 stores already in Alberta, infused, non-infused, both of them. They're the only distributor in Canada that can get into the global market from bean to chocolate bar. So Namaste thinks this is a great opportunity for them to start creating infused chocolate bars and selling them over their Canamart platform online. And so far, they're trying to launch hopefully in April, depending on the laws currently that they're trying to pass on edibles for the rest of the country. But you can buy them in Alberta right now because it is legal.
Namaste had some.
Are all edibles legal in?
No, not in Ontario. They're illegal.
No, in Alberta.
It's up to certain milligrams, yes. You can buy them in store.
Namaste had some issues for a little bit there.
Yeah, they dropped a lawsuit on their old CEO and they came to an agreement. Everything's moving forward fine. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, everything's moving forward fine.
Okay.
And for that 49%, they paid $1.5 million, which I thought was actually considered pretty low.
Reasonable.
It's pretty low considering how big of a company Chocolate is and how big they could be.
You're looking a little pale.
I am pale.
He's
I'm
hungry. I ordered
friggin'
him sushi.
starving.
It's coming.
I haven't ate today. I haven't ate since 8 o'clock
I only
yesterday.
ordered because
Big
he said he was
fast.
starving.
Are you keto fasting?
No.
All right.
No, I'm done with the keto now. I did
I
it for
tried
like a
to eat
month
keto
and a
last
half.
night. That didn't work.
What did you eat?
Oh, Jesus.
Listen,
Okay.
I worked
All right,
out a
We're
lot.
interrupting.
There's one more very big announcement that came out today. Facebook is considering loosening the restrictions around cannabis. So Facebook has established an internal working group, is what they call it, to research global cannabis laws and how they're monitoring it online as well. So currently on the marketplace with Facebook, you can buy and sell all CBD products as long as there's no THC content in them. THC content is totally illegal to sell over Facebook currently, but with this new task force, they're looking into ways to sell medical cannabis, legal recreational cannabis, and promoting and advertising brick and mortar stores that are legal within the United States. This is all coming up very, very quickly. They said that they're waiting for more laws to be put in like the federal their jurisdiction in the U.S., but currently they're working with every state that has it legalized already, which is big news.
Okay, but let me ask, like on that note, how are they going to monitor who's selling what on Facebook? Because people are
It's the
selling.
same thing selling it online here. Who's monitoring that? You give them your ID. It's the same thing. You're buying it online.
Where do you buy your cannabis online? Huh,
Medleaf.com.
Tyler? Oh, we're talking about LPs.
Legal,
Just kidding.
So
Uh,
they're
trying
going
to
the
call
legal
him
route.
out.
Yeah.
Legal route. So
How? What? They're going to become an LP?
in the U.S., you don't have to do that.
Oh, right. So it's an American thing. But how
Right
come there's
now.
But Facebook owns Instagram.
Yes.
They're still shutting down all the
They're
cannabis
considering
Instagrams
loosening their restrictions.
on
That's what
Instagram
they're-
as well.
All of them. They're
Hey, Cannabis,
But
check it out.
Also in the article, it stated that their main concern is how the advertisements will be put forward to youth. So they need to disguise it from
sure.
youth is their main concern.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they're really looking into.
Which youth shouldn't really be using Facebook to begin with, but hey.
Yeah, but
Right. I agree with that.
it was nice when Facebook was only available to people in college. That's how it started.
Well, that wasn't like late 90s?
No, that was the early 2000s.
Yeah, that was late 90s.
No, it's early 2000s.
Oh, maybe.
When I was in high school, everyone was fighting to get a Facebook account because you
In the
went
early
to college.
2000s. Yeah, when I was in elementary school in the early 2000s, I found the same problem, to
It
be
was a
honest.
thing, but now everyone can be part of it.
Can you imagine?
And I don't have Facebook personally.
No, you have Instagram.
I have
Thankfully.
Instagram. Yeah.
For here.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, there's one other thing in the news.
Yeah.
Bow-wow.
Oh,
Wait,
that's nice.
It's not hung up yet, but it's happening.
Tongue up in Burlington.
We're doing cannabis cooking classes here at Synergy, run by this guy right here, Tyler, and of course my amazing cooking skills.
Interesting. Tyler cooks. Do you cook?
I don't know. Do you work? We can keep doing this
The
if we
banter's
want.
awesome.
What's that?
The banter's awesome.
No, I don't cook. Just pointing that out. I try. Okay, so that's happening. And quiet.
It's like you're gonna pay for that one later.
You're
They are
dead.
$25 per class, and I teach infusing butters, oils, tinctures, and making your own flour. And I do advanced classes with recipes. This month we're doing Irish soda bread and Bailey's Irish cream cupcakes for St. Patrick's Day. There we go.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to just tell you the story about Naz. Why don't you tell the story, Naz? And then I want to start with Rory. But what happened last night?
Well, I worked in the hospital all day.
True.
And then I came home and worked for 3 more
I
hours
was working
for Spinco.
too. Okay.
And then I decided.
Granted, the day she works, this happened.
Right, exactly, the day. And then I decided, I'm hungry and I don't want to eat like a huge, quick, carb-filled meal. So
It's
at
10:30
I don't
at
care.
night.
There's no time for me not to eat.
That's true.
So then you eat when you're hungry. In that moment, I needed to
And
eat.
I just came back from the gym. I had a
cares?
whole day. I was
It doesn't matter.
exhausted.
So Ira's upstairs. I text him because, we don't like to screen from downstairs. And I said, can you please make me some bacon?
It's not kosher.
Whatever. So he comes downstairs and loses his mind. First,
10:30. She's sitting on her phone.
No. First, it wasn't even because of the time. First, it was because, well, why didn't you make the bacon? Well, because I asked you to make the bacon. I don't want you to make me some bacon. Like, what's the big deal? There's no making bacon. You just lay out the bacon.
And they put it in the oven.
And I said so sweetly, but I'm just asking you to do it for me.
And I'm like,
And then it turns to the time because that didn't suffice. So then we go, but it's 10:30 at night. You shouldn't be eating bacon at 10:30 at night. Fast forward 2 hours later, this kid goes into the fucking pantry and demolishes 117 grams of fat of pistachios in like
93.
3 minutes. It was all I heard was crack, crunch for like an hour. And I'm just staring at this kid eating pistachios, calculating all the calories, all the fat. Like you could have just had a few strips of bacon.
Yeah, but the
Called it a
effort
night.
involved with the bacon, I was
I
exhausted.
already preheated the oven.
I had worked all day.
Same.
Okay. Anyway.
Did I not?
Whatever. Moving on.
Okay, we can move
Lost.
on.
Okay.
You did
I had a
lose.
similar argument with my girlfriend.
Oh, let's hear about it.
But you cook.
Yeah, not that
Oh,
night.
moving on.
Not that night.
He
I
cooks
wanted
for
her to
moving
cook
on.
for me, and she wouldn't.
I cook every
What was her excuse?
Oh, she hadn't worked all day, and I hope she does not listen to this. And
I got her if she is. Don't worry.
I had just gotten back from the gym and I wanted some food. And I wanted to lay down. I left the house at 7 a.m. and I got home at 10
every
at
morning
night.
in his car.
Stop.
Has he told you?
Every morning. Okay, it's true
Avocado,
for the last
egg,
little bit. Okay.
onion.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
Kelly
let's
always
move on.
does make me breakfast though. She does usually do that.
Okay, let's
I
move
get
on.
breakfast, but
All right.
Different.
Sorry. Wonder who's. Well, anyway, I'm gonna just leave it there. Let's just move on, okay?
now.
Can we just move on?
Peace.
This peace. Shake on it.
Shake on it.
Fine. Rory.
You suck. Go on. I'm just kidding.
What the hell? She had to get the last word in there. Anyway. All right, we're gonna stop there. I will take it and move on. Rory,
Yes.
it's awesome having you back. We're gonna skip Naz and go right on to Rory.
It's okay. I'm happy with it.
So, the last time we had you on, we were talking about cannabis in the sporting world. First off, what's happening in your world? What's been happening with Parabellum? What's happening with the MMA?
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Robbie Lawler fight, maybe.
Awesome fight.
Yeah. Maybe.
The ending sucked, but the actual fight was fantastic. A lot's been happening for us. We're building the fight team. We're very, very active, fighting a lot. We've got a couple of guys fighting on the UFC coming up in Ottawa. Mitch Gagnon has been off with injuries for a while. He was in the top 10 in the UFC, and now they re-upped his contract, so he's coming back, which is awesome. I really want to see him be successful.
So you've got top 10 fighters out of Parabellum.
Mitch is the only guy that we've gotten at that level that we train, that works with our team. A lot of the guys that come in and train with us will be at that level, but I don't consider them our guys. It's a small community, and we try to help everybody.
Are they mostly local?
Most of our guys are GTA. We have guys traveling from Barrie, London, Toronto, all over to come to our pro sessions. Cool. Beyond that, I started doing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu show. It's like a fight night, but we just do grappling. It's a lot of fun. I don't have to sanction it because there's no fist fights, but I treat it like an MMA night, so it's good production value, really exciting matches. It's fun.
When is that? When do those
we did
happen?
one February 9th.
Yeah, we were at somewhere.
Right, so I wanted to remember we were speaking about it. I was going to see if I could sponsor. Maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to. I like what you do. I like. We've talked about this lots. I think narcotics are overrepresented in my sport in particular, and I would love if, as a group, we moved more towards what you're advocating for. I 100% agree. Our next one's going to be June 21st. We're bringing a team from Montreal to compete against a team from Toronto, which should be. Really neat, yeah.
So let me ask you a question on that. In the jiu-jitsu world, I know that Canada sort of came up with this thing maybe a year or two ago that they don't even include it in sanctioned fights. What's the story on that?
There's been a bit of a pissing match between different alphabet soup organizations that want to sanction boxing, MMA,
IFBB,
exactly, and they're all bureaucratic. They're all frustrating. They'll call the cops on each other. And what ends up happening? Yeah, that's happened at 2 or 3 tournaments that I went to. What happens at the end of the day is there's just fewer opportunities for people to compete, to do the thing that they love. Quebec right now has no jiu-jitsu whatsoever. It's illegal because of that, because there's this competition ban.
But all other forms, boxing's okay.
Boxing's allowed, but
kickboxing.
boxing, kickboxing, and MMA have a governing body, like a unified governing body.
Right.
It's a provincial sport organization, and jiu-jitsu doesn't.
In Canada or worldwide?
This is just Canada, and it's actually province to province. So Ontario just kind of this year made the OJA, the Ontario Jiu-Jitsu Association, their provincial sport organization. See, already saying this, it's all these alphabets, and it's all just bureaucracy. It's really frustrating. I'm already more involved with it than I want to be. I would just like to run events.
You don't have a choice, though.
You don't.
You're sort of screwed. I get that.
So I'm trying to fill a role where I can build this sport and give people opportunities to compete in a well-run show that gets them lots of good attention, and maybe makes them feel like an elite level athlete, because they are elite level athletes.
So, but why is it though? We certainly have provincials, we have local. I see these things happen all the time. There's masters, there's world's masters, Canadian masters. So why is it that each province has a problem?
Well, because
Is it belting? Is it that there's no unified?
There's no
way
unified. There's no unified anything.
It's
so
time
you can
to grade
be
today.
You could be the Ontario No-Gi provincial champion
Right.
for the OGA, or you could be the same thing for the OJA, and you might not have competed against the same people to get that title. So
Right.
it makes it meaningless because there isn't any unification.
Gotcha.
It's frustrating. So I'm hoping that we're moving towards something a little bit more settled that I can build on.
You know, I was reading a study. This actually brings me to sport and cannabis. I was reading a study done by Harvard. It's basically just a survey where they were looking at the abuse rate of alcohol and opioids amongst NFL players and amongst athletes in general. 7 out of 10
Yeah.
are abusing one or the other.
That doesn't surprise me in any way. I had a conversation
drug
with.
tested?
No.
Well, you can, but it's gone by the next morning,
yeah.
and opioids are allowed. They're not a banned substance, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you punch you in the face when you're high, and you'd be like, oh. Yeah.
But I had that conversation with my dad. I think at a certain level, I think you could probably say the same thing about football players as you do about fighters. I think those guys are attracted to something that is destructive, right? They tend to be addictive personalities by the nature of what they do, and I think they have to be consumed by something.
That's so interesting.
It is. I think fighting is something that you can stay mostly healthy and still scratch that destructive itch.
Yeah.
Where if you don't have that, I think guys are on a very slippery slope to opioids, alcohol, harder drugs, depression. It is almost the only commonality I see between all the athletes that I work with.
The need for destruction. It's
Yeah.
like the first time I've heard that.
Naz, you should be
What do
a
you do?
fighter.
What do you do with that? With
Hey,
that
I don't have a need
that
for
impulse?
destruction. Just you.
You know, it's funny. I deal with that a bit myself. I tore my tricep tendon in September, so I've been.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah, I've been on the shelf now for 6 months. That's the longest I've gone without training since I was 13.
Do you feel the need to destruct?
Yeah, and it's something I had no idea how much of my emotion was managed by fighting,
Wow.
by not just fighting somebody, but by being hit and by having that danger. It's how I control all the intensity in my personality. And when I don't have that, it's been rough. It's been a rough 6 months.
Right. You have to kind of find yourself without being defined as a fighter.
Yeah, and to
It's heavy.
legitimately control myself, like I'm not an angry guy. I mean, you guys have known me for years. I'm sure you've never seen me even annoyed.
No, you're always the
I know. Always the
smiley,
same. Yeah.
But the
happy-go-lucky
truth
dude.
is that is because I have a lot of outlets. If I don't do that, I do have some
Pent
anger
up.
issues. So that's been tricky.
Is there anything else that you've like supplemented it with that kind of fills that a little bit?
You know, not in a.
So the question was, is there
Spinning.
anything else that supplements that? Actually, I want to talk about that in a second.
But yeah, that's been tough. You know, diving deeply into things like reading that I find interesting.
You read a lot.
I do, and that helps. The project, putting together that grappling competition I was telling you about was something that I could dive into as a project. It builds the business. It's fun, and it gives me at least my mental outlet.
How was it? Was it the first one? Must have been successful.
It was fantastic. We sold out about a week ahead of time.
Wow.
And the community is so cool. It's very different than what you would see at an MMA event. MMA event, you get half the crowd is like us. They
Right.
like fights. They want to see good athletes.
Yeah.
The other half is there to see blood and brain damage.
Right, and they're drinking, getting drunk,
And they
they're a bunch
watch
of-
fights, so they think that they can then fight.
Right.
Like it's just it tends to be an ugly
The
crowd.
psychology of those who can't and watch, it's like the same psychology as those who wear jerseys like with people's names on
Yeah.
the back of them, right?
It's a bit of a fantasy.
It's they live in fantasy world, and then they try to fight and they
It's-
cause destruction.
And it's funny. So I teach. I go into high schools and I teach martial arts. It's one of the things that we do with the gym. And I give the kids an opportunity to spar, not to fist fight, but to grapple. And there's always 3 or 4 kids that won't do it, but will stand on the outside and cheer and yell and ramp people up. And I always sit to them and say, don't be that person, right? Either get in there and do it for real,
Yeah.
or sit respectfully and be quiet. But don't be the type of person that gets excited by violence but isn't willing to participate. That's the worst type of personality.
Yeah.
I agree with that a
Agreed.
little bit.
Yeah.
On the flip side, we have our other athlete who's a super inspiration to many people, who was here last week, talking about her journey from being unhealthy to losing 130 pounds. I don't know if you knew that about Naz.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I met you at a yoga studio where
Yeah.
you looked very much like you look right now,
know.
right?
Yeah.
Which is extremely fit.
You used to
Yeah,
wear tights
thanks.
to that. Remember that?
Was that?
You were wearing tights. You were wearing like a rash guard.
I wear tights everywhere I go.
Yeah.
I was like borderline today. I
Yeah.
got sweet octopus tights.
Oh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
Love them.
So Naz, I mean, if you listen to last week's, very inspirational, and this is one of the things I like. She super inspires me. She lost 130 pounds over 5 years. And we
3.5. Yeah.
Okay, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So she's not competitive.
I can tell.
She's not competitive at all. I think you need to have a competitive personality to do some of these things.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing to know that you're competitive and just use it in a way that's
Positive.
and productive versus I'm going to go and create destruction and not know what I'm
You
doing.
can
So I
compete
agree
against
with you.
yourself, right?
Right, absolutely.
The former versions of yourself.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I have never competed in anything that's like I've enrolled in, like our team sports. I just do it for myself.
So on the flip
Never
side
been
of fighting,
Right.
there's other side to fitness now.
Right.
And that's where
The meditative side.
because Naz, by the way, is a second-degree
First.
black belt. Okay, I always say
Last
second,
week it
fuck
was third.
third,
This
whatever.
week it was second.
She's a second-degree, first-degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Good for you.
She's been to Korea before me. When she was training for the Olympics back in. Oh, how old are you, huh?
Talk about it. Don't throw me under the bus.
Okay.
You know I have like Arsenal beside me.
But no longer doing that. And instead, what are you doing now? Tell us what's happening in the world of Naz.
Spinco Hamilton is basically the world of Naz. Have you heard of Spinco?
I have. I follow you guys on Instagram.
So I was a big indoor cycling ride to the beat of the music sort of rider at other establishments for years. And I've always wanted to be a teacher in these, like an instructor in this sort of environment. And Oakville is the first studio that sort of set precedents west of Toronto. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity. So I did it, I fell in love with it, and then realized we have to open it in Hamilton. So that's what we're doing now. But yeah, so I'm very interested in that you say like, now this, because I think, man, if that was taken away from me, what the hell would I do? But it's like, feed the need of destruction is your meditation, right? And I get that. I totally.
You know, that was me when I used to do Shavasana, right? People would be like, why aren't you sitting still? My meditation was like
fidgety.
I
Like, you're just
I feel
like-
at peace when I'm moving.
Yeah.
Actually, I wrote an article for a paper in Hamilton that called "Fighting for Peace," and there's an idea in Buddhism that samurai adopted that said that is the most mindful that you will ever be. Because I've been to yoga classes where they say live in the moment, don't attach any emotion to outcomes.
Yeah.
If you are in a fist fight and you are doing anything other than living in that moment, you are in imminent harm.
You're right.
Sorry, say that again. If you're
So true.
If you're in a fist fight, if you're in a fight and you're starting to think about what's going to happen an hour from now, you are already
You're
done.
You're
I know.
done. So it's a situation that forces you to be mindful,
Present.
forces you to be present, and
Right.
it's something that I struggle with outside of that intensity. So the argument in the article was that, as violent as it seems, it is the most meditative thing that I do in my life, either
Right.
fist fighting or jujitsu.
I agree.
'Cause it's
like with riding is so loud and it's aggressive and like no one would ever think that would be meditative. But for me, it is. It's my outlet. Or when I'm trying to increase my weights on my deadlift, you know, my trainer's like, if you don't think you can pick that bar up, you've already injured yourself if you try to. Like that's just don't bother doing it. It's totally that mindful space that you get yourself in, whether you're fighting. I think it's just following your passion and doing something you love can be meditative.
but something that requires a whole lot of concentration at one given time.
Right.
Some people are meditation is a passive way of doing that, perhaps, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's an act of meditating. My brain doesn't shut off that way. Some people's do, but I think I finally I just had one of those eureka kind of moments because people say, why is it that I love being on the top of a mountain, jumping out of a plane onto a thing, climbing down, whatever it is,
Breaking
doing all
your
that
bones.
stuff. Right. Because there's nothing else you can think about in that moment. Everything else turns off. Tunnel vision is meditation.
So good. I know.
Do you,
it's so good.
You're a fairly smart guy, right? Like, I mean,
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Who are
She's
you
sitting right there.
Hey, we get a couple of different opinions.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I was reading an idea the other day about hyper intelligent people, like above average, and it creates something called a hyper brain, where your brain is constantly churning at a rate that prevents you from kind of relaxing. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's kind of the category that you fall into, with the amount of work that you do, the amount of things that you do to keep busy. I almost feel like you're trying to stay ahead of that situation.
Yeah, well, the brain doesn't shut off. It just keeps on going. It's always rolling. I just think it's like the attention part. But I always go back to Gabor Mate, who talks about the trauma of somehow some weird subconscious childhood trauma has led us towards all of our problems that we have today.
100%.
So I don't know. It's one or the other. Either I've got this really, but the truth is, I was born with with my umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and I came out breech.
Like
So I was like upside down hanging, basically. And so I had an anoxic brain injury at birth.
Shocking.
So, since that time, it's been all messed up. But I do have a hyperactive brain. It's possible. I mean, I think it's totally possible. But I really like the idea, whether you're fighting or in a class, because I find that in a class, it's that same. Right. So Naz is a savage instructor. By the way, there was somebody here. The guy that was lying down in your class you may have had a couple days ago? I don't remember his name. We can't talk about how we've seen him.
In spin or yoga?
In yoga.
Okay.
So I met that guy, and he came up to me and said, I took this yoga class, it was fucking. I'm like, was her name Naz? That's all I said. He's like, how do you even know where I was taking this class? I go, I'm married to her. He's like, I wondered what happens in the home of that person. I'm like,
it's really good, person.
It's really good. Yeah, it was funny. And he's like, I don't know why it has an I next to it. There's no I. It needs to be A. I guess they put intermediate, like on the website or whatever. It's like A+, going to one of her intense classes.
But when I did yoga, I found that if I went to one of those like breathe, relax, restore classes, that's not doing anything for me. If I went to a class that was really, really challenging, then in the last third of that class, I could actually
unwind.
Yeah, and it's like I earned it a little bit, right?
Yes, I'm the same way.
So that's actually very much what I would look for.
So how would you? You guys started off a conversation talking about how, like, we can go into lots of details on fighting and all the stuff that you're doing now, but the point of the last couple weeks is, how do we get people started? There's got to be a future. You've got top 10 MMA fighters, you've got fighters who are there pro, you got people that
professional gym that people
and this goes for both
to.
of you. This goes for both of you. How would somebody who finds this stuff interesting, doesn't want to just sit on the couch and put the name on their back, how do they start?
Yeah.
Where does somebody? I mean, and they're not 8 years old anymore. Because I started martial arts.
And they have zero experience.
And they have zero experience. We spoke about, it's a small martial art. When we met a few years ago, we already knew half the
same people.
Because it's a small martial art world when it comes down to it. And so when you're 8 years old, sure, you just put somebody into a little karate class. But the intimidation factor, I
think you become more guarded and blurred the older you get.
So how does somebody who wants to make a change and promote health and wellness, move towards those things, where do they start? How do we get somebody? I did a post to your post. Nobody really looked at it because it wasn't like a picture, and people seem to like pictures versus words for some reason on Instagram. I put all the points on, are you happy? I did all that stuff. But how do you make, now they're ready to change, how does somebody just show up?
Well, one of the things
for both
that I said to Naz in that initial conversation is that Hoist Gracie, the first UFC champion, said that the hardest part about getting your black belt is that first step, is walking into the gym for the first time. I agree. That is intimidating. You don't know what to expect. My advice would be to jump into it. Do a little bit of research. Find the type of martial art that you want to do, and then just start. Things will iron themselves out as you go, and you'll start to recognize. Certainly at my gym and most of the gyms that I've ever been to, you're not walking into an environment with a bunch of thugs, right? You're walking into an environment with a community of people that support each other, that all have the same goals. We're all pushing in the same direction for the same thing.
No matter what level you are.
And I remember my first class. I remember, at this point, 16 years ago, parking in the Jocelyn's parking lot here in Hamilton with my hand shaking, thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, why the hell am I doing this? And I was coming from a wrestling background. I was already a national champion in wrestling, but the idea of going in and getting the shit kicked out of me by these killers was nauseating. Then I went in, and some of the guys that I met at that first class still train at my gym. I'm still very, very good friends with. Like, it really is an awesome community.
So, right, because you were a national wrestling champ, and but still, but you still had a background, even as a wrestler.
Yep.
It's still intimidating. So, what about you?
Well, I just have another question for Rory. So if I walked in and say I didn't want to fight and I just wanted to condition as a fighter, could I do that?
So what I do as a coach, and what all the coaches at Parabellum do, is we treat everybody that walks into the gym like they're going to fight.
Oh, cool.
And the reason we do that is we don't teach bullshit. I will not advocate for something in any fight that I think will get you hurt. And that means if you're a 75-year-old grandmother in your first class, I will teach you to keep your hands up. I will teach you to throw punches as correctly as you are able.
Right.
What I would suggest that might make that initial class easier, if you come with a friend that's at the same skill level, that takes a lot of the anxiety out of the situation, because if you screw up, you can both laugh about it, and you're not impacting somebody else's training session, because that's one of the things that causes the most amount of anxiety. It's like, well, Ira's been here for years. He looks like he knows what he's doing. I don't want to ruin his session because I don't know how to hold pads, or I can't figure out this arm bar. If you bring somebody the same level, you're both there.
That's actually a really good, and again, by the way, all this noise is because
we ordered sushi.
They ordered sushi while we were.
How many people to a class?
Hold on a second. I still have.
I'm trying to decide when I'm going.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So day classes tend to be small. We'd have 5 to 10 people.
Okay.
Evening classes, variable. I'd say on the small side, 15 to 20.
One coach.
We try to keep a coaching ratio of one coach to 10 to 15 people. So if we get a huge class, I'll have one of the senior students, I'll pull them out of the class and have them help, because it's hard when when I only see 10% of the work that you do in a class. It's hard to get you any of the information that you need.
Okay. So you offer privates too and stuff.
We offer privates as well.
Yeah.
And that can be a good way to start. Although for the average person, that can be a pricey way to start.
Right.
I would always advocate for starting with classes, and then when you get a sense of what that's like, if you want more specialized attention, then privates are a good option.
Cool.
So that brings us to, actually, I think one of the best points there was the idea of bring a friend. So you have somebody that can look, the food is coming out. You have somebody that can be there to laugh with you. Yeah. Laughter is always really important. Even when you're fighting this is what always happened to me. Even when it was a big fight or there was a big match coming up, even when I was wrestling, laughter is what always got me through it. Even if I was, fuck, that hurt. And you're like, God, and somehow that got me through it. I was never super intense. I've never been a super intense person. I always found that sort of laughing helped me a lot more than being intense.
Yeah, that's rare.
What's that?
That's rare.
You know what, though? It's funny. When you're backstage before a fight, you have this idea that there's going to be like a fighter in the corner with his hood up. That happens, but that is way more common. You have this black gallows humor backstage that everybody's laughing, and we're all like, this is fucked up. Like, we're going to go fight somebody for money in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So what else can you do, right?
Yeah.
Other than laugh. So that's actually, it's funny. That is something, the best guys to work with in terms of coaches and colleagues when we're working with fighters are the guys that can do that. Somebody that can crack a joke at the right time, make a fighter laugh, and then kind of dial them back in.
Right.
That's the best mind frame for a fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I find that with anything I do. I find that putting a little humor into it, oh, you can't hear me? Damn it, we thought this would work. All right, we tried. We'll have all our mics working.
When you're training a fighter, what's more important to...
Naz
really, it's her show. It's her show. I love it.
Taking it over.
To protect themselves or to fight? What do you focus on more? Like how to not die or how to kill someone?
We always start with how to not die. But as I said, if you only protect yourself, you are never thinking offensively.
That's right.
Offense in a fight is inherently dangerous. The most exposed you ever are is as you're punching. So yeah, you know, we'll teach you to keep your hands up, but if you never throw a punch, you will lose every single fight that you ever have.
Right.
There's a system of fighting. I can't remember what it's called. Where I wish I could remember it right now. It's just one of these like combat. You know, a whole bunch of these combat systems are coming up, but it was actually a smart combat system. It was all about you've got to move. If you are not moving forward, you're gonna die. You have to move forward. You have to attack. There's no option.
Right.
Survival. If you're just sitting back trying to defend yourself, at one point you're just gonna die.
Yep.
It's just what's gonna happen. If you don't attack, your chances are zero. Like,
I quote General George Patton.
Yeah.
So he captured more enemy territory than any other United States general in history. He said there is no retreat. There's only attack some more. Right? Nobody has ever
unless you can run away.
But even
if running away is an option, if you can run away, running away is an option. If running away is not an option, you do not sit and defend yourself. If you sit and defend yourself there's no option. There's no option to attack. If you can run and escape to survive,
and
option.
I don't
if
disagree.
It's not an option, you have to attack.
But there's also
see the guy who killed the cougar in Colorado.
No.
Jiu-jitsu guy choked him out. Choked the cougar to
The
death.
foot over the neck, but he had his arm locked and he couldn't get it out of the mouth of the cat. So somehow he maneuvered and pinned his leg on its neck and killed it.
Yeah, it's badass.
That's
insane.
insane.
He manhandled a legitimate fucking cat like that.
Oh, you
Yeah,
it was nuts.
it's badass.
It is a crazy.
You don't have a choice. Try taking on hence a cougar.
The running away idea. So that's
Okay.
a great example. You try to run away from a cougar, it's going to run you down and kill you.
Done.
Right.
And then there's also the idea that what battle are you choosing to fight? So I read a book when I was a kid that I loved. It's called Ender's Game. They made it into a movie. Don't watch the movie; it sucks. Read the book.
I remember that.
But in
I remember
the
that
book, they put this kid in a position where he always has to defend himself, and he always has to know that nobody will come help him. So he eventually gets to the point where he says, I know an adult is gonna let me get beat up, so I'm gonna solve this problem myself. And he solves that problem one time, and then it never ever happens again. So running away sometimes, I think, just draws out what is going to be uncomfortable and hurtful and damaging to you, where if you're willing to bite down on your mouth guard right now and fight, that will solve more problems long term. That's something I've shifted in my own view as a martial arts
It doesn't
coach.
just have to be martial. We're not talking physical fights either.
Quotes that in his first book.
What's that?
That exact thing you just said.
Really?
That book, everything. It's in Forrest Griffin's first book.
I actually had the opportunity to train with him in Vegas. Really down to earth guy for somebody that's been famous in that sport since he's been famous in the sport for 20
Pretty
years.
much day one.
Yeah.
First Ultimate Fighter, right?
Yep, he was. Him and he does. So I love this story. So Dana White gave Chuck Liddell, Matt Hughes, and Forrest Griffin a job. He showed up. They took that as a gift.
Eat while we finish.
He showed up and actually started working. So he's the only one that still works for them.
So Naz, can you sit? We're not done with you.
I'm feeding him.
I'm just. Oh, that's so kind. That's so nice. Let's just bring out the food while we're all sitting here anyway.
Fantastic.
While we're getting all the food prepared, and Naz, thank you for doing that. I actually wanted your opinion on how to get somebody into your class for the first time. But if you want to do that, and we'll come back to your question in a second. Do you want to do that? Yeah, finish that up.
Yeah, sure.
So while we're waiting, and that's happening, what's up with the Robbie Lawler fight? What'd you think about the end?
Thanks.
It's unfortunate. It's a really unfortunate end. And the truth is, did you watch the fight live?
No.
I watched the fight live by myself, and I was 100% sure he was unconscious.
You should bring your
You
Right?
were, right?
I have the angle that I saw where he dropped his arm. I was saying out loud by myself, he's out. And then they stop it, and It sucks.
But he says why? But I mean, he was a man. Like he seemed to be like a pro about it.
He's had 40 fights. He's been in the industry for years.
Right. Is it still on? Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I've actually gotten into a shouting match with a referee in a fight that we won because I didn't think he did a good enough job defending the guy that we were fighting. And I said, okay, so we won this fight this time, but what if that was the other way around? What if my guy's the one on the bottom getting the shit kicked out of him, and you let him eat 50 unanswered, unnecessary punches? I was furious.
Right. It's hard to know, right?
Erring on the side of protecting the athlete should always be the ref's job, and Herb Dean did that. He erred on the side.
He did the right thing.
I think he did the right thing too. As much as I wanted to see that fight play out, as much as I think Ben Askren's a dickhead, and I would love to see Robbie Lawler. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a dickhead. He's an extraordinarily talented athlete. I think there's a place for heels in the sport, but I don't like him.
Right.
I certainly didn't want to see him win that fight.
Okay.
But I mean, Floyd
Seems
Mayweather
like nobody
made a
really
career.
wanted to.
Thank you. But Floyd Mayweather made an entire career off people paying money to hopefully watch him lose.
Right.
So it's not stupid. But man, I thought Askren was out too. In the first, Lawler powerbombed him and then started lacing him.
Seems like he got killed throughout the whole entire match, right till the last moment.
Killed is he ate a lot of shots. Yeah, but he's been fighting tomato cans for.
Has he though?
He hasn't fought somebody at Lawler's quality. Like
Callie's never been hit like that. I was like, what?
And that's what he's gonna. That's why it's so interesting.
Where did he come from? Pride? No.
One.
That's
FC.
it. Not Pride.
And they actually. So what they did, Dana White came out and was like, "I will never hire this jackass for any
why?
reason."
Yeah. Why did he say that?
Dana White.
I was just reading some articles.
Dana White gets butthurt. I don't know. Like I said, I have a hard time staying up to date with all the drama that's going on in the fight world. But what they ended up doing was they did a fighter exchange. So they actually traded some UFC fighters. So for instance, Demetrius Johnson, who was one of the most dominant UFC champions ever, but he fought at 125 pounds, so nobody really cared. They sent him to ONE FC, and now he's going to get to fight a bunch of people at 125 because in Asia that's a big weight class. That's represented
sense.
well.
Get that on. So Naz, before you stick that in your mouth. Or just can't. You see what I'm saying? She just had to stick that in her mouth. It just doesn't matter.
I'm here.
All right. So tell me, how does somebody start? So fighting is super intimidating, but I've also gone to, but funny enough, less intimidating for I've trained a ton of different martial arts, but I never actually trained let's say jiu-jitsu proper until I went to Ouroboros. And sure, I wrestled, I did all that stuff, and I do a lot of stand-up fighting. Never did very much grappling in terms of submission grappling, the jiu-jitsu type stuff. So, but it wasn't intimidating for me to go in there because I've come from different fighting styles, and I just, as long as you're willing to learn and you come in soft, you're going to be okay. You have to throw your ego aside in that. But then you put me in that spin class, my first spin class, where it's all ego because I could do cardio or whatever it is. I felt like a dumb fool, and I was intimidated to walk in seeing these people that looked like they knew what they were doing. So how does one? I was more intimidated going into that.
I would be too. I would be.
Well, I think
really
that's just case in point with whatever you're not good at in your mind, you're going to put a block up against, right? Like I'm not an elite spinner, therefore I'm not going to go learn how to do that, which is counterproductive, right? Like I'm not a great martial artist or a great fighter, so I mean I am, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's just not what I train in, so I'm not going to walk in there confident because, well, that would be my ego standing up for me and saying don't do it because you're not going to be the best at it. What?
The best.
You know, it's funny. That makes me think. I watched. It's
true.
I actually heard this on a rap track, if you can believe it. But they quoted Jerry Seinfeld, and I love the quote. He said, "Growth is always uncomfortable because if it wasn't uncomfortable, it wouldn't be growth.
You wouldn't grow.
It wouldn't be something new, right?
Right. So you immediately put a block and say, I'm not doing it because I'm not going to be the best at it. But as far as my spin classes and yoga classes go, you've heard me say it. I don't care. You can do whatever you want. Just sit there and watch because it is a fucking experience. Like, it is a journey. You can do the Macarena if you want. I don't give a fuck. Just come and sit in the room until you're ready to do what you want to do. Right? You've heard me say that to multiple people.
Yeah, no,
And as soon as
actually, that's what
if Rory said to me, you don't have to do anything. You could, but that's not what happens there. But that's what happens in my room, right? Like,
but it's not necessary. No. So
It is what
I
happens
walk
in my
into,
room.
I come into your spin class. I would just spin my heels.
just turn your legs. Who
right.
cares? Just watch.
Right. So you don't care if somebody knows what they're doing or not what they're doing.
No.
How does somebody first start? It's an intimidating environment. What would you tell somebody?
It's just what he said,
to-
right? The hardest thing is to walk through the door, right? The hardest thing is to just book the bike and come through the door. Let me do the rest. Just trust me.
You do. You speak to every person. So
It's-
this
yes.
is what I told. This is something super unique to Naz that I don't see. First, she has an amazing memory. So she remembers literally every single point of every moment. She remembers names very well.
That's
so
huge.
she
That's
meets you for
huge.
5, and I remember nobody's name. I'm like, hey, bud, what's up? You know,
Yeah.
but she'll literally stand at the front of each class, be downstairs, being like, hi, so and so, hi, so and so. They'll be like, what? You came to my class 6 weeks ago, just once, or I saw that you signed up, and I know this is you because no. She like literally will spend hours just sort of making sure everybody is comfortable. Most people don't do that. I get it.
And my sole thing when
what-
I start is trust me. Just trust me once,
Yeah.
and I promise you'll trust yourself. Like, just trust me once, one fucking time, and I promise you, you'll
swear a
trust
lot.
yourself.
You swear more than I do.
I know.
My lips are really chapped.
They're so chapped. They're like red.
I know. I'm wearing lipstick today.
Yeah,
Lip chap.
I like it.
So, because somebody wants to come into the class,
Yeah,
you just show up. Just
Just
show
show
up.
up.
I think
Just show
that's
up.
like the.
Just show
That's
up.
how it is
Just-
with everything.
It is.
You just gotta
that's
show up.
It's
Who cares?
90% of success.
Yeah.
Is just being there and showing up.
Just
And
showing
one,
up.
One of the other things, and I don't want to speak for Naz, but I think
can.
sometimes people walk in and think, God, this instructor thinks I'm a pussy or thinks I'm out of shape.
I feel like that.
That is,
sometimes too.
I have dealt with
Yeah.
every spectrum of athlete, and I will tell you 100%, nobody walks into my gym for the first time and does this well. Nobody. It just doesn't. It's like swinging a
Right.
golf club for the first time
Yeah.
and hitting a 400-yard drive. It doesn't happen. You have to have some specialized knowledge, and that takes all the judgment out of it for me. If you show up, you pay attention, and you work hard, you have 100% of my attention, and that's the best you can hope for, right?
totally, totally.
That's actually a really good point. And most of it is in our heads. Most of it is what are they going to think of me? It's the other people who are staring at
Yes.
me. It's,
And remember last week we talked about the story you're creating, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's an imaginative
a fiction.
narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a fictional story that you've created with an outcome, with a result, everything in like 3.5 seconds when it's not even true.
Right. It's the sitting in the car, hands trembling. Am I going to go in and look like
A fool.
You will. I mean, it's also acceptance of you're going to.
Yeah, but
these
who
things
cares?
are all going
Yeah.
to happen.
Even if you do think about it, 99% of the people that judge you don't know 1% about you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Think of it that way.
yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Say that again?
99% of the people that judge you don't know 1%
So
about
true.
you. So what are they to say to judge you?
You know, I put on all these quotes. These quotes are amazing. I want to write that down.
That's one of my favorites.
99% of
People
the
who judge you
people who judge you.
don't know 1% about you.
If you know where you got it, just take credit for it.
Yeah, I know.
I
know.
I'm pretty sure I thought that up.
Yeah, I would. I think I'm gonna just use it. I think I just said it.
Yeah.
Don't
My
know
name at the bottom of
1%.
that.
Don't know 1% about you.
Yeah, I lived in fear for years, a fear of not doing something because of how I would be perceived, and that was my biggest regret. Like, I won't be able to get that time back, but for damn sure I won't do it anymore.
Actually, that's really helpful. It's all really helpful. I think that 99% of people who judge you don't know 1% about you. That's another moment. That's a huge moment. That's so true because I've gone through everything that I've been through, whether it's fighting or not fighting or coming to class, but entire life is being judged constantly because I'm in the spotlight, because of all the things that I do. And most of the people that, with Naz went through this last week. I told you about that as well, and we spoke about it a little bit.
So what?
If everybody loves you, there's a problem. You're doing
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
wrong.
Winston Churchill said that if you have an enemy, that's a good start because it shows that you stood up for something.
That's right. So, and so I've got a lot of people that dislike me, and
I can't imagine that.
Can't imagine that. Yeah. And it starts off with colleagues, and you just sort of want to be you, and sometimes you strive for them to want to like you, and you do all these fucking things to get them. Why is this person just not liking me?
Yeah.
No matter what I'm doing. but they also know less than 1% of you. So they're judging you based on their own perception, right? And that's the truth about most of these things. So, I mean, I love all that stuff. By the way, guys, you know what time it is?
420.
It is literally 4:20.
If people hate you,
Hold on. Oh, here. Oh, Tyler's in there.
Tyler's pink. He's pink again.
if people do hate you, all you can do is kill them with kindness, and eventually it does kind of sort itself out.
What's that, Naz?
Or you can just kill them. Just kidding.
Yeah, one or the other.
Fighting solves everything. It really does. You
solve
just beat the shit out of them as well.
Just
You
kidding.
can- So it's
I
in
got in a lot of trouble for that in middle school.
my whole life. I think this has been really, really. I mean, there's so many enlightening things and similarities. Even though somebody's fighting with fists and whatever, and feet and hands and brain, because it's a huge brain game, or somebody's pedaling on a bike or sitting in a class. There's so many commonalities, and for the people that listen, and for our patients in particular, the most difficult thing is getting started. And where do you start? And the hardest thing is walking in. And after that, it just, I guess, like you said, it just becomes
It's inertia. It just
Inertia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the fighting mechanism and the medium is different, but the internal battle is the same, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we didn't even talk about cannabis in sport, guys. We never
Go a
seem to
little
get
bit longer.
around it. What's that?
It's my show. Go longer.
No, Jeez. Can you spend? It's my show. Go longer. Okay, let's just talk about one last thing, because I mean we're eating anyways. Who's got?
And you got food when I'm here.
Right. Okay. And you got food.
Great.
You know, this sounds like Sam Aziz and me in the other doc that works in the clinic. He's always bringing in food, and I come in and they're like, "Well, where's our coffee and our donuts and our?" I'm like, "I'm trying to be healthy."
Yeah.
So I brought
So
you
you guys,
air.
yeah, you guys don't get anything.
You get nothing today.
Nothing's good enough for you. So that's what you're
Intermittent
gonna
fast.
get. Yeah.
5 hours. Let's do it. Cannabis in sport. Since last time the NHL has jumped on the bandwagon. We see that happening. They signed with Canopy, but it's mostly for
Post-concussion research.
they're doing concussion research. Cannabis and concussion is really important, specifically CBD around and long chain fatty acids around neuroprotection and stuff. But like we said, there's 7 out of 10 people are addicted to in MMA and NFL and football are addicted or abusing either alcohol or opioids. Where do you think what's happening in the MMA? What are you noticing?
Well, we spoke off air about my friend Elias, who's in the UFC.
He's get him on.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. He's really pushing to end the stigma associated with cannabis. He wants to be the first MMA athlete, UFC athlete that gets an exemption for cannabis with USADA. Because as of right now, I don't think
USADA's fine with CBD.
Yes, but he's looking for THC, and he's and to his credit, he is using his platform for something that he's passionate about. I think you guys have a lot to talk about, but it is everybody in this sport is aware that opiates and alcohol are a problem, and I think once you get over the idea that cannabis isn't just to get high and have fun, then it becomes a lot more prevalent. Even at my own gym, I've always enjoyed cannabis for my own reasons.
Yeah, sure.
My business partners, Lucas and Lyndon, aren't into it as much, but they have started using.
Maybe calm him down a little bit.
Well, they've started using
really?
CBD and pot as a way to deal with some of those issues. Because both those guys. I'm a jiu-jitsu coach, which is pretty easy on my body. Those guys are striking coaches, so they're getting punched and kicked daily by professional fighters, hundreds of times. It puts a major toll on the body. So they've started using that as a way to manage pain, and they are. It works.
Well, I mean, it's super important for our own body produces the stuff, as we know, and anandamide in particular is we talk about the receptors that cannabis binds to, CB1, CB2 receptors. We've heard all of these things, and one being in the brain. But the truth is we have a lot of these receptors that are located in our musculoskeletal system, specifically around bone. And anandamide is important. It's a partial agonist, which means it attacks and causes its action on, like an agonist in anything, on the CB1 receptor. And it's actually important for bone growth, bone resorption. So like it helps reuptake bone and helps bone formation. And specifically, so like around things like fractures and around bone growth and development, and also for collagen formation. So things like after post-workout, we talk a lot about the relaxation that CBD causes, muscle relaxation, the anti-inflammatory parts. But the truth is, it also helps rebuild. So on that side, you've got CBD, but then you have anandamide, which is actually the bliss molecule. That's what it translates to. That helps lay down collagen. So when you break down muscle, you have to rebuild it. You actually need the pro-inflammatory process when you break down muscle, because otherwise you're not going to grow again. It's not going to heal. You need healing. Healing is pro-inflammation. All those substances go to those areas that are broken down. For example, after a fight or after a break or after a tear, you need the pro-inflammatory process. You want to minimize it a little bit, but you still that doesn't look good.
What do you mean?
From like a medical standpoint, it doesn't look good. That's I don't like hearing that.
Weird. It looks like bursitis from here.
The surgeon, you might know him, Dr. Venkateswaran.
Yeah, of course.
Dude, of course, you went to Vic. Vic's a good buddy of mine. He did
that
my
makes
knees.
sense. Okay, yeah,
he does a lot of the pro guys
with the Thai cats as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I actually just saw him yesterday, and I asked the same thing because I'm like, listen, this is
Vic is an amazing surgeon.
Love the guy too. He was awesome, really easy to deal
Your
with.
hometown, Georgetown.
So I went for
Vikram Venkateswaran.
Is that how you say it? I've been calling him Venkateswaran. I had to practice that.
I could be totally wrong.
Okay, I hope you are, because I like.
Call him Dr. Vic.
Yeah, Dr. Vic.
I called him Vikram 30 seconds after meeting him because that's way easier.
That's what I call him Vic too. What is it? Is it maybe it is Venkateswaran. I don't know.
But he's awesome.
Vic is awesome.
He's awesome. But he told me that this is just because the sutures that they laid down still haven't built a sheath of scar tissue.
And he's super conservative. He's a great surgeon.
He is. And he said, you know what? I'm a bit of a dummy. So when doctors tell me not to do something, I'm like,
we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
listen.
the same way.
I know my body better than you know my body, so whatever. But he's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but if you stretch that tendon, you just will never regain the strength. So go for it, but then don't complain to me when you've got a weak arm. I'm like, well, that's probably the best way you could have phrased that. So yes, fine, I will listen to you this time.
And then your elbow will look like it's going to be swollen for the rest of your life. How long ago was the surgery?
September 21st.
Okay, that's a long time ago. It still looks interesting.
Yeah, I've also been. I mean, as much as
Way
I
to
said
go,
that
Vic.
you're making me nervous here. But
no,
as much as
he's my surgeon.
I have been back to rolling. Because as much as I did have some outlets to help me, they're not helping enough.
Okay.
So getting back to rolling, I'm being
cautious-ish.
But the downside of that flow state that we talked about, where you are existing in the moment, is I maybe don't think about the consequences of posting when somebody tries to step around, and I end up using 100% of the strength. Where if I was lifting, I'd be thinking about it a bit more. So that may be why it's a little.
Now you need the fluidity. Now you need to incorporate some other stuff aside from what you just learned, and you need some of my fluidity. Bringing some of my systema into that world.
That's
and you flow. Just flow, but
just
real stuff, not like the bullshito.
Some of the rush. Well, there's bullshito with everything.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, some of the Systema stuff online when it fails is the funniest things I've ever seen about. Hit me in the face. It just gets cranked.
Gets crushed. Yeah.
Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah, get crushed. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It looks just so bad. Anyway, I still train it once weekly on Sundays. But I come home, I'm purple, black. Nothing works when I do it.
Yeah.
And I come home purple, she thinks it's like old man.
God.
Bunch of old men hitting each other is what it is.
You need to shower.
We just basically hit each other. Like learning to absorb punches is something we do a lot of. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of hitting.
In the snow.
A lot of, or sometimes we'll go and train in the sun. It's just,
It's Russian as hell, right?
Russian.
Drink some vodka, get in the snow and fist fight. Like, what else?
You gotta go. So, and
it's a national sport.
It becomes painful. I come home black and blue sometimes. So, but Naz, so what happens when people get injured in your thing?
What do you mean?
So how do you deal with it? Use cannabis?
Do I use cannabis?
Yes.
Of course I use cannabis, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'd
for what?
much rather use cannabis than take an Advil or,
Does it help you post-recovery, post-workout?
100%. I think it just softens everything. So I have chronically, I have a lot of trap pain, trap triggers for sure.
Like neck pain, for
Yeah.
those who don't know what traps are.
Yeah, and hip flexor pain, like while at rest all the time. And cannabis before bed just settles everything out.
Yeah, I feel like cannabis before bed is good.
Yeah, I don't really take cannabis in the day or medicate with cannabis in the day, but every night before bed, for sure.
Do you use it before you train? I know we were talking about some guys that do that.
You know, it's for me. There is you are inebriated. Like it does affect your mental state, and some people say that helps them focus, and God bless you, more power to you. I don't like it in my gym. If as long as I can't visibly tell, I'm not like asking people on the way in if they're stoned, but I have asked people to leave.
But you would ask them if they were using opioids and doing the same thing. Would you not?
That's the thing. If they showed up with the big pupils,
Yeah.
then I might.
Anything.
That would be way more concerning. Way more concerning, because with the opiates, you're masking so much pain that you're gonna get injured without recognizing what a problem. Even my dad, who's 70 and still trains, he's my hero, but he'll be taking Advil or something beforehand, and he'll say after, it's like, shit, my arm got really hyperextended because I didn't feel it nearly as sharply as I would have. So I really don't want people to train in any kind of altered state. The other component of that is I always advocate for training the exact same way that you're going to compete. So
Agreed.
if Elias does get his exemption, then sure, then train the way you're going to compete. If you're going to fight stoned, then train stoned.
Well, I don't know if he's. So there's a difference. I'm just going to go back to the idea of stoned.
Yeah, sorry.
You don't have to be stoned using cannabis, right? There are so many different ways to even use THC where you're not stoned. And it's dose dependent, and it's individual dependent as well. And in times that it doesn't matter, where we don't have to make generalizations about being stoned, like we're not driving a car down the street, then I think individually, I think it's important to recognize the variations. But at the same time, I agree with you. You know, if I'm using cannabis, and it's alleviating a symptom, doing something that can potentially injure me. I mean, the question comes down, we hear this all the time. It's like saying don't give pain medication to somebody with a bowel obstruction because it's going to mimic if the bowel obstruction is getting worse. Well, fuck you. I'm going to give you a lot of pain medication, and your pain will eventually go away. I'll come back and check on you in 2 days.
I would say the better comparison would be like our neurosurge patients. They only want them to have codeine. They don't want them to have any narcotics because we have to assess their
mental capacity.
Right? So they're
Right.
saying
Okay,
that
that's
narcotics would.
Fine, you're right.
Co-host, soon to be only host.
So, all right. On that note, guys, it's been a really awesome episode, and I think that people can take a lot away from how to start just getting into the. If you want,
do it.
Don't be afraid to just go and do it. Cannonball. You got to do it. The more you think about it, the more it'll freak you out, and you got to attack.
Exactly.
Because
Wet to swim.
You got to get wet to swim, and if you're always retreating, you're never going to win. You can't win retreating.
Oh, way to end. You were so proud of yourself.
I can't win retreating. Final things. You guys want to plug stuff? You want to start? Go for it.
Spinco Hamilton. We're taking instructors right now.
What do you mean we're taking instructors right now?
Instructor call right now. So we have about 8 or 9 people that will be training to ride the podium come this summer. And we're super stoked about that. We're going to be looking for key leaders, energy exchangers, ambassadors, everything.
If you know how to ride,
blow up. Yeah.
Ride on.
You don't have to know how to ride. You just got to show up.
Okay.
Oh, well done.
Bring it back.
Well done.
Parabellum.
Parabellum MMA. We're located in Oakville. We are a professional fight gym, but I love beginners. Right.
Do you ever get beginners?
All the time.
And that's okay with you?
That is better in some ways because I can build something, right? I can build something correct as opposed to fix other people's mistakes or other people's preconceived notions. I love beginners. Show up with the willingness to work, and like I said, you have 100% of my attention. I believe so strongly in martial arts as a tool to improve your life that if you aren't in Oakville and you want to reach out to me, I will point you in the right direction to train somewhere close to you. It is a small community. I'm connected to a ton of different gyms, a lot of coaches in the province that I respect, and I would happily recommend any martial arts gym to somebody that was looking to include this in their life.
Well, thank you guys for being on here today, and Thanks, Tyler, for dealing without your usual mic. You were awesome. Again, Lucas, thanks for dropping the IG on us, and the IG to the OG, and thanks for the food. To that would come from that probably is going to come from Epic. That's going to come from Synergy. Also, insurance. Check out if you're looking for cannabis insurance again. Check out buywell.com. You can check that out. And we have a health and, by the way, so we have a health and wellness e-commerce platform. All things health and wellness. 14,000 different products on there. If you're looking for anywhere from your bulletproof over to whey protein, over to household health and wellness organic stuff. Anything you need, you can kind of go online there. It's like what's that?
Amazon
for wellness. And look at this woman here.
Anything else?
Amazon Prime for wellness. But you can also look at cannabis coverage over there as well. Check out our Instagram. This should be up on iTunes maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Because Lucas is slow. He's very slow. And then the video will be up in 16 days. Oh, I'm kidding. That was like a joke. I think I swore less today than I have in forever. I'd love to have you guys on again. It's just always a blast having you guys.
I always love it. I actually just like talking to you guys.
Yeah,
I know.
It's fun. I miss you guys.
I miss you too.
All right, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.